Real fast, I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Upworthy Weekly. It's a lighthearted news podcast. It comes out on Saturdays, and I have forced my co-host, Todd Perry, to join me here to help me tell you about our new venture. Todd, why should they listen?
Well, I mean, a lot of people, they think, oh, it's the Upworthy podcast. It's just going to be sunshine and it's going to be unicorns. But you know what? It's really not that. Allison doesn't have the ability. She doesn't have it in her to actually be that person that I thought we were hiring when we did this show. But clearly, after just a couple episodes, the facade dropped. Okay? I thought, she's doing the Upworthy show. It's not going to be like, oh, neurotic, cynical Allison, but no, she's there. So, I try to counteract that with some of my good vibes.
I would argue that if one person is coming off as a little bit cynical and unhinged right now, it's not me.
It comes out every Saturday, wherever you get podcasts.
Bye.
Allison Rosen is your new best friend. Allison, with her good times never end. Allison Rosen, doing the wavy pencil dance again. Allison's your new best friend.
Hey everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Allison Rosen is your new best friend. I'm very excited to welcome my guest to the show, and I will bring them in a moment. Now, as you know, this is the time of the show where I would be chatting with my producer, self-described bad boy of podcasting, Tony Thaxton. However, also, as you know, if you've been paying attention, he has abandoned me to go play drums with his dumb rock band, Motion City Soundtrack. I just had him as a guest on my Monday episode, and I explained that I have mixed feelings about referring to them as a dumb rock band, because they're not dumb. They're actually a great rock band. Tons of listeners have been going to see him on this tour where he's been playing for thousands of people each night, blah, blah, blah. And I don't feel good about calling them dumb because he's not the only member of the band. And his mom has been listening to the episodes that he's not on, which I personally feel is like a victory for me and the show, etc. But she's been texting him saying Allison's saying some pretty intense stuff about you. And then, he's been, explaining that that's our thing. But at the same time, no, you know what? They are a dumb rock band because he chose to go play drums with them and not be here for the episode. And I don't like that very much. In other news, and look, the world is a pretty not great place right now. And I think we all know what we're talking about. But in very, very personal news, I washed my very favorite pair of house pants. They're not sweatpants. They're more yoga pants, but they're kind of what has gotten me through the shutdown, which is not really going on anymore. But, they're still what I'm wearing. I washed them last night. I got them out of the dryer, put them on, and there's something that is now itching me in the back. And I take a few steps, and then I'm like, what is bothering me? And then I look at the waistband. I can't find it. Put them back on, take a few steps. Look, I took them off, laid them on my bed, got out. I have a magnifying glass with a light that my mom gave me because that's the kind of family we are. I don't know if I think it's actually for stamp collectors. I don't know, but I inspected it. I can't find the thread or whatever it is that's poking me in the back, but, I don't know what to do. I think I might have to throw out the pants, but I don't have another pair waiting in the wings. So I know it seems like not a big deal, but it feels like a huge deal. So if you have any thoughts about that, tweet me at Allison Rosen. You can, contact me on Instagram as well at Allison Rosen. You can email ariynbfshow@gmail.com. Or perhaps leave your response about my pants in a review wherever you listen to the show. I would love an Apple Podcast review, 5 stars. This seems like a ruse. Oh my God, I just saw a bird Okay, I'm sorry. I'm staring out the window and there's a bird perched on a light string and a bird just like fell off. I think this bird is depressed about the pants. Okay, excuse me. This is a real sidetrack. I am delighted to welcome to the show a couple of podcasting veterans. I'm sure you know them from the self-help road test, self-help test kitchen. I'm getting my lingo all mixed up. Podcast by the book, and also from the actual book, which is called How to Be Fine, What We Learned from Living by the Rules of 50 Self-Help Books, Kristen Meinzer and Jolenta Greenberg. And now they have teamed up again to bring us a new podcast called Romance Road Test. I knew Road Test was in there somewhere, where they tried out all these different ways to put the spark, let's say, back in their marriages. We'll get into more of that. Please put your hands together for Kristen Meinzer and Jolenta Greenberg. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited to be here, Allison.
It's so nice to have you guys here. Okay, let's just pick apart my intro. Did I get all that right?
Pretty much. Yeah.
You got most of it. Yeah. So, Jolenta and I, for 9 seasons now, have been hosting a podcast called By the Book. And as you mentioned, that's a self-help podcast where we live by the rules of a different self-help book for 2 weeks at a time. And we record ourselves at home, in the world, in our marriages, so you can hear how each best-selling self-help book we live by enhances or destroys our lives. And so, on that show, we've lived by everything from the life-changing magic of tidying up to The Secret to the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Think of a best-selling self-help book. We've probably lived by it, and we've probably tortured our loved ones by living by that book.
How to Be Famous by Heidi and Spencer.
Oh, now that one's a good book, actually. We loved that book.
I went down a rabbit hole of being like, I need to get Spencer Pratt on my show. And I tried to make it happen. Like, I took a few steps to make it happen, in that I emailed someone at his, I don't even know if he still has a podcast, but I emailed or contacted someone at his podcast network, or his then podcast network. And I became bitter that it never happened. But then I was looking at your podcast feed and I'm like, oh my God, you guys had Spencer, didn't you?
Yeah, we had
How
Spencer.
was it?
It was a wild ride. We got him through Twitter. That's how we got him. And then, there was definitely a few times of rescheduling. And then I believe he was a teeny bit late, but it was because he was doing a martial art class, or was working with his martial arts instructor. So it was everything you would ever want from Spencer.
Did he give you a Pratt Daddy crystal?
No, he did not give a crystal.
Bummer.
But we did talk hummingbirds, which was delightful.
Do you follow him on TikTok?
Yeah.
You know that he's been debunking, what does he call it? Pratt. He has some name for when he pulls up scenes from the hills and then explains what was really going on behind the scenes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, he explains the production side. It's very, very cool. You should check it out because you love a BTS reality edition.
Oh yeah, I do love the behind the scenes. I do. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to get into all the how that came about and which books you found helpful and just sort of your relationship with self-help and stuff like that. But let's talk about the new show first. Okay, so Romance Road Test. That's the name, right? For Audible.
Exactly the name. Yes.
Yes.
It's an Audible original.
Does this happen to you? I used to be so good at names, and I also used to have such a good memory. Those two things, I guess it's kind of the same thing. That was my thing. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting old or if it's because of social media. Now we all know 12 million people, or if it's a combination of both. But I go to pull a name and the wrong one comes out. And I'll be talking to someone and I know their name and suddenly I get this anxiety that I'm going to say the wrong name. So now I just double check everything. I know that that's the name of your show, but I still had to check because I'm just I feel like I'm mangling it.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Literally, I did it yesterday with somebody I know. I called him to his face the wrong name, and he's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
But you know what I don't do it with? Like that one third-rate actor who was on that one episode of Love Boat that was syndicated for me to watch on Saturday nights. Like, I'll remember something like that. Or like that one time that, on Little House on the Prairie that Albert did this thing. Like, I'll remember shows from my childhood, like, that are taking up room in my brain that should be going to remembering my friend's name who I saw last night.
Right. Well, maybe that's why. It's because the pop culture center of the brain is filled. So the friend name section is, there's a smaller
There's
area.
an overflow.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. So it's Audible and all the episodes dropped at once. Is that you guys and Kristen, you wrote a book about podcasting. So you guys are real. I like to consider myself because I've been podcasting for a while. So I consider myself a podcasting lady. But you guys, total podcast experts, veterans, but this feels like kind of a new format. Format's the wrong word. A new trend, perhaps, for all the episodes to drop at once.
Yeah. And, for By the Book, we put them out every other week because we are literally living by the books for 2 weeks. We want people to follow along. We want people to have time to read the books and so on. And but Romance Road Test is different because each of the relationship hacks that we tried were essentially just like one date usually. Like, tonight we're going to assemble flat pack furniture together and see if it makes us love each other more. Or, whatever it is, we're going to write each other love letters and see how that works out. And so Jolenta and I essentially just banked all the episodes and then Audible released them all at once. And so many of our listeners have written in saying they binged the whole thing in either 1 or 2 sittings.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. When you first found out they were going to release them all at once, what was your reaction?
Our reaction was sweet. I was excited. I like a binge. I like listening to things for like hours straight or watching them for hours straight. So I was excited to release something in the way that I tend to consume it. Like often I'll like save up episodes so I can like listen to a bunch in a row sometimes. So I was just excited that I was like, it's the way I listen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good idea. So where did the idea for this show for Romance Road Test come from?
Well, part of it is that on By the Book, our husbands appear in the episodes a lot. Jolenta's husband, Brad, and my husband, Dean. Maybe we are preparing for death through like the gentle art of Swedish death cleaning, and our husbands and I will talk about death together or whatnot. Or we'll be living by America's Cheapest Family Gets You Right on the Money, and we'll be trying to budget meals for the whole week for 15 cents or whatnot. And we'll hear our husbands appear in the show, loudly exhale, have to live through whatever this is. But people have written in for years saying, we would just love to have more of the husbands on the show. And Jolenta and I were thinking, what is the best way to get more of our husbands on the show and to maybe switch things up a little bit? And we thought, by doing relationship hacks, because there are no shortage of them. They are a constant. They are regularly fed to women in particular in magazines and books, whatnot, on TikTok. And so much of what Jolenta and I are doing is just examining what are the expectations put on women, on people, what is in our culture that forms our ideas of what's good or bad or right or wrong or self-sufficient or not. And so we're like, you know what? Let's turn all of this onto what romance is. What is a relationship? And we'll use these hacks to examine our relationships and maybe even help or hurt our relationships.
And were you feeling like your relationships were needing a little something?
I'll speak for myself first. This is Jolenta. For me, I'm sort of coming through the back end of, I guess, like a 2.5 year ordeal with lupus and having to go on like chemo medicine and like losing all my hair and just really relying on my partner to be a caregiver, especially during the pandemic, because like I had no immune system. So he's like my, caregiver and my proxy to the outside world. So now that I'm like getting healthier and I'm, much more able-bodied and such, we're trying to figure out how to like get back into like partner mode and out of like patient caregiver mode. So we definitely needed like a few things to like shake up our dynamic.
Right.
Yeah. And for me and Dean, I would say there wasn't anything as monumental as that in our relationship, but we just happened to have been going through like, it's like we looked at the calendar and it's like, oh, it's been like 7 years together. Are we literally going through the 7-year itch? And we looked at each other like, we spend a lot of time just sitting on the couch watching TV with each of us looking at our own phones. We spend a lot of time doing things that aren't necessarily bad, but, would it help us in some way? Would it be fun to shake that up? Are there ways we might be taking each other for granted? Or is it maybe not so bad that we're so comfortable with each other? So the show was a chance for us to look at all of that from different angles.
It's so funny because in the first episode, just the term 7-year itch is kind of just is mentioned. And my husband and I just celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary. And I feel like, we have 2 young children and things are great, but definitely we could use some spicing up of things or some excitement or anything like that. And I was thinking I had completely forgotten that there is that term already in culture, the 7-year itch. It was kind of comforting to realize that like that is, it really kind of is something that happens.
Yeah. It's so normal. There's like a dorky saying, like that sounds like it's from the 40s. Like she's got the 7-year itch. Like,
Right. Right. So what were some of the things that you tried and found helpful?
Well, Jolenta and I don't always agree on what was helpful.
Right. Like for my partner, Brad and I, we really liked trying each other's hobbies. And like for me, it was a very like at home, like solitary. I was doing bead weaving. I was making a basket out of beads.
This is something he does?
No, it's something I do.
Oh.
Something I do, not him. And so like he got into it and he realized like, oh, this is way harder than I thought. And like, oh, you make a pattern first? And then I went with him to his like dorky backgammon club that meets at a bar and like does some low stakes gambling every weekend. And like met a few of the guys he hangs out with and like learned how they do their like whole gambling process, which is very complex, of course. And it was just nice to get like a little peek into each other's own like personal worlds. And, maybe we aren't going to do it again. But now when our partner's talking about what they were up to, we have a much better like picture of what it is.
Right. Right.
I just want to jump in though and make clear, Dean and I could have broken up over the hobby date. We did not enjoy learning about each other's hobbies. We did not enjoy living those hobbies. Dean loves video games. He tried his best to come up with a video game that I would enjoy. And then, of course, he micromanaged me and turned into a tyrant the entire time and tried to show me how to do it right.
It's hilarious.
And he is such a sweet, mild-mannered guy with the most gentle, easygoing, stereotypical New Zealand personality. He's from New Zealand. And he was not that guy during video game hobby day. And then I tried to introduce him to live theater. I know for a fact he hates live theater. He particularly hates when people are talking and trying to act natural on a stage. He hates when people are suddenly singing and he doesn't understand why. He hates,
live theater.
He hates sitting in a theater. So I came up with this outdoor ice dancing event, which I thought he would enjoy more because there's no talking, there's no singing. You're not in a traditional theater. And it was pure hell for him. He could not believe he was sitting through what felt like a modern dance experience for him. And so when Jolenta talks wistfully about like, oh yeah, and I learned a little bit more about what his life is like in his spare time. For me and Dean, it's like, never again. Yeah, I don't care. I don't ever want to play a video game again with you.
What
Never.
was the video game that he had you play?
It was I forgot the name of it. It was about world building where there were like, you could build little blocks of an island and all the blocks could go together and then you could build buildings. And I was making a very livable village, which had like public spaces and then houses that were, dense housing with a city square because I really care about, equitable city planning. And he was just like, why aren't you building skyscrapers? You're not
If you
pushing
were
the
a real
limits of this game."
gamer, like you'd be building real high.
Yes.
Like, whoa, chill out, dude. Like she's not a real gamer. Like
I
let
am
her
not.
explore.
I've tried so many times to get into video games because it's been a long time since my husband has played them, but I watch the times that I have seen him sort of escape into that. And I've thought, I would like to have that kind of escape, but it's just not my thing. Twitter is, which doesn't bring me peace. Well, I guess video games don't really bring him peace either though. But, yeah, I don't know. Like I remember when we were first dating, he thought maybe I would I don't know if you guys are familiar with a game called Portal. That seems to be one that a lot of people think gals would like, or
Non-gamers
people who
will like.
not typical gamers would like. But I was
Is that the one that's like Scrabble? Or-
no, it's like I think people would they say it's like a puzzle game, but you're like this little robot and you're trying. I think you're like trying to get out of somewhere. But two people can play at once, and I just remember that my video game literacy was because I played, Super Mario Brothers when I was a kid. Like my video game literacy was so low that I couldn't even control the the video game controller thing. Like I was having trouble even figuring out what moves me forward and sideways. And so it was the thing that was supposed to be so easy was difficult for me. Okay. So the hobby night did not work for you, Kristen. What was something that you found that you liked?
Well, Dean and I loved the terrifying date. So the terrifying date is supposed to actually just kind of confuse all of your senses, because one thing that happens when we're falling in love with people is there are, there's heightened adrenaline, there's anxiety, there's fear. All of these things are kind of mixed in together, and you can kind of replicate that by just throwing yourself into a really scary situation together. And so I am not, to be clear, a very good bike rider. I don't own a bike. I've never owned a bike in my adult life. And Dean had recently recovered from a mountain biking injury that got him, stitches and in the emergency room. And so we decided, all right, let's ride a tandem bike together in Brooklyn.
That I feel anxiety. I think I'm falling in love with you guys because I feel anxiety and adrenaline just hearing this.
Oh God!
If you listen to the tape, it's just her shrieking and being like, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" Like it's
yes.
horrible.
Oh, that was a perfect
And
imitation,
terrifying.
Jolenta. Yes, that's what the whole episode sounds like: is me screaming and saying, "Oh my God!" Yeah.
But I would agree that one worked for Brad and I as well. Like it might just be like the adrenaline endorphins make you be like, whoa, we just survived that. And like ours was like pretty basic, where we're both fine drivers, but in our relationship, we got that sexist trope where he's the one who usually drives when we have a car, which is not often. We, help our neighbor move his car when he's out of town. So he lets us borrow it once in a while. But so we just decided I would drive us to the beach, and it was terrifying. I tend to be a little overly cautious, which doesn't go over well for New York drivers. When you wait too long to make that left turn. And so it was a lot of him screaming at me screaming back. But then by the time we got to our destination, we were it felt like we had, just ridden a roller coaster together, and we were kind of psyched that we survived, even though it was just driving to the fucking beach.
Did you guys watch, or do you watch The Bachelor?
I have not watched it in
not for a
ages,
while.
but yeah, same as Jolenta back in the day. And back in the day, I was even in a Bachelor league. I admit it, but I haven't watched in quite a while.
Okay, I have not. I'm on and off, but back in the day, do you remember the season where it was, I believe his name was Jake Pavelka and Vienna?
Yeah, that one. I remember Jake Pavelka for sure.
It was Vienna Gerard. I want to say Girardi. Anyway, not important, but they they sort of locked into each, or they, clearly there were sparks between them super early on, and then I think he chose her. But their date was that they went bungee jumping together. And I remember thinking this is unfair because it's because they went bungee jumping together and he was so afraid or she was. This is a terrible story because I am misremembering
No, but
all
I
the
see
details.
what you're getting at. Like
That's what
they
I'm getting
had
at then, yes.
they had such a near death experience.
Exactly.
That like they were way more bonded than the other
They were
ones.
trauma
I feel like
bonded.
this happened on another
Yes.
season where they did like a 0G room and the woman threw up and then he ended up picking her and everyone was surprised. She was Canadian is all I remember. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, Bachelor does that a ton. Even like the balloon rides they do all the time or like a helicopter ride. Like that would totally sort of trick your nervous system into being like,
Yeah.
I'm jittery and excited and you're here. So I'm excited about you. Like,
Yeah. How did you choose the, for lack of a better word, to use reality show terminology, the challenges that you would do?
Oh, I like that word, challenges. We've been going back and forth on like calling them enhancers, hacks, dates.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, challenges. That's a good way to put
love
it.
that.
So
It was pretty easy. Like all we had to do was look for like, Cosmo listicles about like how to like get closer to your man. Like I would search things like getting closer to my guy and stuff. And then there would be like too many to choose from.
yeah, our first season, we go on 15 dates, and the 16th date is we sit down with a relationship therapist and we kind of unpack everything that we've gone through. But our original list, when we were like trying to narrow things down, must have had 100 things on it. There are so many ways that we as women are supposed to improve our relationships, and there are no shortage of ways we're falling short. So,
Yeah.
but we
Sex
just
every day.
yeah,
Love
so-
letters.
Because that was one of them, right?
Taxing. For me, it was physically taxing towards the end.
It was very taxing. Yes, it was.
Did the dudes love it?
They liked it, but like my husband got sick of it too. But that forced us to be creative about like sex isn't always like, hetero intercourse. It might be like one of us like getting a handy or something or just like making out for a bit and like dry humping. And it's like just like a physical connection moment. Like we really stretched the definition of sex at the end. Mostly because like you get sore having sex all the time.
Yeah, it's an invitation for various infections.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I'm glad we both like escaped without UTIs.
Yeah. That was the sexiest thing I've ever said. That's such a mom of a teenage. It's an invitation for various infections.
It's worse than going in a hot tub for too long.
Was there what one thing, if there was one, were you dreading the most, or was there anything you were dreading?
Oh boy, Jolenta, I feel like Brad was really dreading the smut exercise. He did not
Yeah.
want to read smut back and forth with you, did he?
Right. I like ended up dreading that because he like so clearly was dreading it from like not even day one, but like day one of like the concept of the show. But they say like a lot of expert relationship experts say like reading, erotica out loud to each other is a great way like to sort of, get excited for each other that isn't just like physical sex, or a good way to like get into physical sex. And my spouse, he has a career that, makes it so he doesn't necessarily want, his coworkers or people to hear him like reading porn to
Right.
his wife. And, he also is like recovering from like a pretty like strict Catholic upbringing. So like he's just a little reserved in that area. No one needs to like hear it. So it was a big challenge. Like I was dreading it because I had to be like, how do I find erotica that this guy is comfortable reading, let alone reading while I like sort of shove a little microphone in his face. And I ended up on some Victorian era erotica because mainly they have so many layers of clothes to take off. Like nothing happens.
What about you, Kristen?
Oh gosh. What was I dreading the most? What were Dean and I dreading? I mean, I don't know that we were necessarily dreading anything. We went in open-minded, but we were surprised with how many things flopped. and we were surprised with how many things went well. But one that I was so excited for was to go to a romance theme hotel. And this was something that the minute we had our short list together, I was searching immediately. Like, oh, I want to find a theme hotel. I want to get us costumes. I special ordered these Star Trek uniforms for us. I found this hotel that like has, you know, the heart-shaped hot tubs, the champagne glass hot tubs, all of that stuff. The outside of the hotel actually is a castle. Literally, the outside looks like a castle. I was so amped up for this. And then we got there and I just like, I don't know where my libido went. I left it back in New York because we were going to New Jersey for this. And as we got closer and closer to Jersey to this hotel, by the time we got there, it just was like, I can't do this. I don't feel sexy.
What do you think happened?
I just feel like I built it up too much. There was too much pressure, the costumes, the whole thing. And so what we ended up doing was just, you know, we went to the center of town and there was a historic district and we read history plaques, which is one of my favorite things in the world, is like history plaques, reenactor actors, old buildings, all of these things. So we came across all of these things and then we just had a nice dinner and we drank wine and we ended up doing things that were kind of just like what we would normally do on a little weekend getaway. And once we did those things, then I did feel sexy. And then we did go back to the hotel. And then we did use that hot tub. And we did all the things. And I did get a UTI afterward, sadly. But but it was just so much pressure to perform. And I didn't expect that because I was so looking forward to it. And then, yeah, it didn't go as planned. And that happened a lot to both of us, I would say, Jolenta, that things would not necessarily go as planned.
Right. Yeah, how much is the doing the stuff for the podcast, having the microphone there, how much does that affect things, do you think?
I'd say at this point for my husband and I, it doesn't affect things too much. And he's more comfortable like being candid and then afterwards being like, that thing I said in the middle, like, don't use that. Like, so at this point, because we've been doing our like regular show by the book for so long, like he's pretty okay with it. And I haven't like done him too dirty yet, so I feel like he also like trusts us, you know?
Yeah, Dean is mostly comfortable with it at this point, but it has happened before where there have been certain things that have been recorded that his coworkers will then tease him about later. There was in By the Book, not in Romance Road Tests. I think we were living by the 5 love languages, and we did end up having a romantic bath together that still Dean to this day gets ridiculed for and feels just like completely mortified by. And listeners still like to write in about that episode. They just love to taunt us about it.
You know, if you're a Housewives fan, I don't know if you are, but it's very like Tamara and Eddie in the bath, where it's like, oh, stop. I can't watch this. Or hear this in this case.
I have a gendered question to ask you guys that just popped into my head, but I'm wondering because my husband, when I first met him, he was quick to let me know that he was not the kind of person who would ever like want to be interviewed on the show or, you know, that's just not his thing. And now he's a regular on the show and does the intros for the Thursday version of the show, which is a group show. So he's totally like changed since we've been together. But I sometimes wonder, I feel like it takes a certain level of, I feel like this is like, it's not capital P problematic as a question. It's small p problematic as a question because it is like I said, it's a gender question, but like it takes a certain level of like strength as, I'm just going to get it out and then we can criticize my question. But I'm just thinking for a man to have, for the wife to be the one who's like the known personality who has the podcast that a whole bunch of people listen to, and he's a personality on the podcast, but it's like not centered around him. and he's not in control of what gets put out there and stuff. I'm just wondering, like, do you think that is hard for them, I guess, ego-wise, or do you get that? I'm not articulating it well, but all three of us are the ones who have the husbands who are kind of the side characters on our show. No offense,
Right.
Daniel. That's my husband.
No, I know what you mean, because I feel like putting them on mic, like, sort of inherently means a level of vulnerability that I think, like, in a society that raises, you know, people in, like, gendered ways, like, we're more used to, and it's more common for women to be more vulnerable. And, like, it takes a guy who's pretty, you know, either oblivious or chill or comfortable with himself enough to be vulnerable in, like, certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dean, for his, you know, when it comes to him, he loves it. He feels like a celebrity. When people, like, occasionally people, like, maybe once every 3 months, somebody will stop him on the street because maybe they'll overhear him talking. They'll hear his accent at a coffee shop, and they'll be like, oh my God, are you Kristen's husband, Dean? And he loves it. He feels like a superstar. So
It's adorable.
and yeah, it's fantastic because it makes him feel like a superstar. So he loves it. But yeah, I also would say that Dean, of all of us, is not somebody who came up in the world to be a performer. Both Jolenta and Brad met in acting school. I've been podcasting for 13 years now. And so Dean, he's like a computer scientist. So to him,
Right.
it's just like this whole other glamorous world. And he's like, ooh, look at me. I'm on a podcast. Not that podcasts are glamorous. We all know that podcasts are just like, I'm sitting in a closet right now, literally talking with you. So not that glamorous.
Right.
It's
So
a tricked out closet.
How did Jolenta? How did you and Kristen meet?
We met working in radio for, like, a daily news radio show. It was my day job. I was, like, teaching acting. Pardon me. I was teaching acting and realizing, like, wait, I'm not an actor. I'm a stand-up because I, like, fucking hate other people. But I also needed money. So I was working admin at this news radio show, and Kristen was a producer there, and she also had a focus on, you were the culture producer, right?
Yeah, I was the culture producer, and I also hosted the station's movie podcast.
Right. And so I was in charge of getting all the show's mail, which includes, like, so many books. Like, I'm sure you get this. Like, you probably get sent books of, like people who want coverage. Mm-hmm. And some books, like, make sense. And it's like, oh, like, you know, Madeleine Albright wrote a book. Like, we should, like, look into booking her. But it's also, like, you know, bins and bins full of ridiculous books, especially self-help books. So I was at a point in my life where I was, like, shifting careers from, like, one stupid career as an actor to just a stupid career as a comedian. And I was like, I'll take all these books and change my life.
I love that.
And then I was like, and because I'm, like, self-absorbed, I'll record it. And then I knew Kristen would at least be curious because she loves, you know, sort of picking apart self-help culture. She loves critiquing books. And I was like, she would be such a good person to do this with. Because she's a good friend of mine at this point, and I love talking shop with her, but also she's, you know, more of the level-headed one, more of the skeptical one. So she's also around to, like, make sure I don't, like, accidentally join, like, a self-help book cult or something.
What radio show was this that you guys were at?
It was a show. Oh, should we say the name of the show? I guess we can.
Yeah. So I don't know why we aren't saying it.
Yeah. It is The Takeaway, which it used to be back in the day, a 4-hour live daily national news show. And now I think it's an hour-long show that is in a lot of markets. I think it's a mid-morning or an afternoon show now in a lot of places.
Mm-hmm. would you really join a cult, Jolenta?
I don't think so at this point. I think maybe at the point like I'm talking about, which was, almost 10 years ago. But I think I'm much more skeptical about like looking at the source of the material, like looking at who is telling me what to do and making sure, they actually have the credentials they say they have and stuff, which I didn't do before. But turns out there are a lot of people who will say they're doctors on a book.
How do you have opinions about Teal Swan? Because I just watched that documentary.
I was literally thinking about her while I was answering that question.
Yeah.
We must have intuited each other.
No. I know. We really did. What if she caused us to think that? She might be, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I feel like I had seen her on social media once or twice or something, and then someone recommended that documentary, Deep End.
Yeah, The Deep End.
Yeah, and so I just watched it now. Mostly, I just want to know what happened to Blake's fish.
Oh my God, I know. And she had a rebuttal on YouTube where she says he left him in the sun for 6 hours.
Right. So I only know that
what's
because...
the case? Why did he leave him? Maybe he had to because shit was going down. I don't know.
Right. I mean, the filmmakers definitely made it look spish.
Oh, totally.
Sus. Yeah. I haven't seen her rebuttal. I only know because I went back to the woman who recommended it, Stephanie Welder-Taylor, for my listeners who have been following all this because it was on air that it was recommended to me.
I see.
Yeah. So anyway, wait. Sorry. This is a real tangent.
Back
She's someone who really
back to the original Teal thought.
But no, I mean, she's like, I was just losing my shit watching this documentary because of her uncredentialed, destruction. Anyway. Okay,
yeah,
so
no, she's uncredentialed and implanting false memories in people. Not even a bad psychiatrist doing it. No, and it's and that is someone who, if I caught her at the right time, she would have that's the person I would have totally vibed with.
Really?
Totally. It's embarrassing to say, but I'm watching her being like, oh my God, 15 years ago, me would have bought this hook, line, and sinker, probably.
Yeah.
Or gotten too far in and realized, oh no, it's crazy, a little too late.
Well, thank God you didn't.
But one thing we've learned is people who love to say they're experts, often will stretch their credentials. And then when you get into cult territory, they incredibly stretch their credentials, whether it's the amount of abuse they have suffered or in the case of NXIVM, he's a genius, he's a piano prodigy,
right.
Keith Raniere, the guy who runs it, where it's it's sort of a common theme where they have these sort of grandiose backgrounds
totally.
that when you barely scratch the surface, it crumbles.
Yes. Totally.
Yeah.
So,
and go ahead. Sorry.
No, I want to hear what you were going to say.
Oh, I was going to say, cult leaders, both Jolenta and I are very fascinated with them in various forms. I'm particularly kind of obsessed with anything having to do with either multi-level marketing or the Christian patriarchy. So I was obsessed with the Duggars, 19 kids and counting back when they still only had 14 kids. I've always been very obsessed with, everything from essential oils to Tupperware parties to makeup and so on, as far as, how are people selling this? What is this pyramid scheme and so on? So it's kind of a fine line between that world and the self-help world. And a lot of people who are writing self-help books are actually appearing at MLM conferences, are actually getting together at these retreats with these people from the Christian patriarchy and so on. So they all kind of associate with each other, or they just are those people sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, Lula Rich was so good.
Yes.
Right. And
yes.
I think, I'm trying to think, Rachel Hollis either did stuff with them or some other MLM thing too, where it's
she's
and then
done a lot of
MLM
MLM
thing going on.
MLM stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah, Lula Rich is wild.
So, Kristen, am I right that you are more or were more skeptical of self-help as a movement or self-help books than Jolenta?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, very much so. I was definitely coming in from the position of, I'm a critic. I'm a culture critic. I poke holes in things. I tear it apart. I break it down. I am not somebody who wants to believe the promises that the self-help authors offer. And oftentimes I look at them, and there's also, a racialized and a gender and a class aspect to a lot of the books that are out there too. This whole mythology of, if I can do it, anyone can. But then you scratch the surface and you realize 2/3 of self-help authors are men and 2/3 of readers are women. And that's a stat from Goodreads. So that shows that it is an industry filled with men telling women what to do. And the vast majority of them are white men. They aren't dealing with things like structural racism. They aren't dealing with gender inequality the way we are. When they say, if I can do it, anyone can, well, maybe you can do it because you were born on third base, but I wasn't. And so there's definitely that aspect to all these books too that, resulted in me going in a little suspicious. But also I think so many of the books, their bread and butter is doing the same thing the diet industry does, telling you that you're the screw up. This is your fault. You need to have better habits. This is why you're where you are right now. And you need to be fixed. And I don't really like going into any relationship, either with an author or a physician or anyone else whose starting point is that you're the fuck up.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy that.
You're
So-
like, here's this problem you have.
What you're saying makes me think of The Rules. Do you remember that
Oh,
book?
yes.
Oof.
Yes.
Yeah.
I knew people who loved the rules back in the day, people who swore by the rules. And the authors of the rules, I'm sure we all know this, they did land husbands by following these rules, which are essentially like play hard to get, play head games, never call them back.
Never
and-
accept a weekend date after Wednesday.
Yeah, but then the authors, even though they landed their men, ended up getting divorced
Yeah.
from them. They didn't know how to make a marriage work. They just knew how to trick somebody into marrying them. So
Right. And it's not even, and there's no do you even like the guy? It's just about,
Right.
I don't know. So what are some of the self-help books that you liked?
It's not, oh God. I'm just going to say it. I'm very biased. I love Dolly Parton. Okay. So I almost feel like I should not be prescribing this because I went in with my own preconceived notions, because we are lucky to be alive at the same time that Dolly Parton is. But her book, Dream More, was an inspiration. It only has 4 steps to it. It's concrete, what you're supposed to do with each step. It's laid out well. Her voice comes through in everything. And most self-help books don't do any of those things. Most of them don't have the steps clearly laid out. The voice of the author sounds like could just be the voice of any ghostwriter sometimes. It was also short. Too many self-help books are 600 pages long when they really should be maybe 150 pages. And so Dolly kind of nailed all of that. But again, I'm very biased. I love Dolly Parton to death. When my husband and I got married, we honeymooned in Dollywood. She is a goddess. We are lucky to live on this planet with her.
What about for you,
It's true.
Jolenta?
It's true. I also loved that book. I have 2 favorites that are tied in my head at this moment. The first one is sort of an old school one. I think it came out in 1986, the same year I was born. And it's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. And he is an actual PhD. He knows how he knows about cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's a book that pretty simply lays out how self-talk affects you, what you're saying to yourself in your head, and how we predominantly as we grow up sort of collect all these negative tidbits that we then remind ourselves of, and some are important, don't cross the street without looking both ways, that you should remember and maybe say to yourself every time you cross the street, but not you're a fat, disgusting pig, every time you eat food. And then he talks about how neural pathways work and how, those negative pathways are sort of laid. But also the good news is we can change them. And simple affirmations and just sort of trying to notice how you talk to yourself and flip it to a positive bent. And that over time eventually will become habit. And you can create better neural pathways. And like it literally helped me stop calling myself a garbage person. I do it a lot less. But that one was a more technical one, but it really was like, but it's laid out simply. And like Kristen said, we love things that are like actionable. And it's like, here's how you do it. Here's how your brain works. But like in lay terms, not like, doctor terms. And I also just loved Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes because I was going into it a little skeptical, even though I love her. But I was like, how is Shonda Rhimes, the like television goddess that she is, gonna like be able to tell me like a little schmuck about life? Like how is she gonna make this relatable? But here she is talking about like, oh, I had to go sit next to Michelle Obama and I felt like shit and I didn't want to go outside. And I was like, oh, I can relate. Not about Michelle, but about not wanting to go outside.
Right. See, if she had internalized all the shad stuff, we wouldn't have that.
Yes.
It's true. It's true.
I did read an interview with you guys where you mentioned that book, Jolenta, but then Kristen, you were, if I'm right, if I remember correctly, you were saying you didn't like that book as much, the self-talk one, because you didn't like the story behind it. Is that right?
I think that is a fantastic book. What I didn't like was how Jolenta talked to herself all the time. And that's why I kind of snuck that book into the schedule, and maybe Jolenta wasn't necessarily on board with it originally.
It might have been me that was skeptical at first.
I misunderstood the story.
Yeah,
I see. You were saying you don't like how that book got. Why? I see. I misunderstood what I was reading. I'm glad I brought this up.
Yes, but another book that Jolenta and I not. Like, there are a number of books that Jolenta I like that are not just about the individual, but so much of what we need help with. Why do I feel tired? Why do I feel bad about myself? Why do I feel like I can't get ahead? So many of these questions that self-help books claim they're going to help us with aren't because of what we as individuals are doing. It's because of the world we live in. And so both Jolenta and I have also enjoyed books that are like, hey, don't just, put a sticker on your mirror saying, you go, girl. Instead, maybe write a letter to your congressperson. Maybe go out and protest in the streets. Maybe find a way to give back. Maybe find a way to spread kindness, because that's an endorphin rush for you, but also makes the world slightly less painful for somebody else. And all of these things that help us to look outward have done more for me in the self-help universe than just like sitting and meditating. I hate meditating, by the way. And any book that has me meditate makes me an angrier, more violent person. So just have me go out in the world and be nice instead. Those kinds of books have done so much more for me on the show. And I wish more self-help books were like that.
I want people to know who are just listening to this and not watching it on youtube.com/Allison Rosen that when Kristen said that she hates meditating, Jolenta had a real look on her face. Are you pro meditation?
She really hates it. Well, Kristen's just like she's like a, spark plug, but she's generally like a pretty polite Minnesotan, but you get her meditating and afterwards she's always like, "This is fucking dumb. Like, I hate the world now too." And everything's loud. She can never get comfortable. Like, I never see her drag her feet to do a task except when it's meditate. So I just always love that side of her because it so rarely comes out.
Which one of you bullet journals?
Me, Jolenta.
Do you do this every day?
Ish. I mean, at this point, it's basically just a streamlined like to-do list that I try to like keep track of, where I have like sort of a brain dump list and a like daily list of like, here's the 3 things I'm gonna like maybe try to do today. But yeah, I still use it, and like it definitely helps me with the day-to-day, like, oh, remember to like put that in the mail, or remember to, email Kristen that thing. But I don't use it the way a lot of people do to like track every workout or every cup of water or this and that. Mine's very much like, just get a few things done. Okay.
Right. I feel like the time required to bullet journal, the way I see people doing it, I don't have that, or I haven't figured out how to make that.
You gotta search for like minimalist Bujo, and then you'll find ones that are all just like, I used a pen and wrote like Monday, and then, but like it's a little aesthetically pleasing, but it's not like I learned like detailed calligraphy, and watercolor, and like I made my own stamps. Like it's like no.
Yes, exactly.
But people get super ornate. And I think a lot of people use it as an outlet that I think doesn't make them feel guilty, like a crafting outlet or like a drawing outlet, where it's like, but it's for a good purpose. It's because I'm meal planning for everyone's lunches this week, but I'm also gonna like fucking paint for 5 minutes,
Right. How did life-changing magic of tidying up? How was that for you guys?
Oh, that was a lot of work.
It's a big task, like the initial like big clean out, because it literally says dump everything you own out like in a central location and start like sorting it from there. And like even in New York or in Brooklyn where we have like small apartments, like everything you own is a lot of things.
Yeah. And then
especially if you have kids
object.
around, like which we didn't. Yeah. Oh yeah, you have to touch each thing. Pick it
See
up.
if it
Does
sparks
spark
joy. Yeah, do each of the categories in the correct order.
Oh,
but
right.
then I think the harder part that most people aren't aware of if they haven't read the book cover to cover is the lifestyle portion. So the tidying up is only half of the book. The other half of the book is to live the tidy way. So for example, if you get up in the morning to take a shower, you have to get your shampoo, conditioner, soap, and washcloth out of a cupboard because they can't actually be in your shower because that causes visual clutter. So you have to take them out of the cupboard and then use them, wipe them off, put them back. Ideally, nothing has a label on it because labels are also visual clutter. So all of your canned goods should not have labels on them either.
So you never know what you're opening. This is a new thing I learned just from TikTok, and it actually like made sense to me. Just that all the words in your kitchen, although I can't imagine actually taking the labels off food because that's insane, but like all, the dish soap words and all of that is just kind of clutter.
Like you do read it. It does register. Like it does take like a little blip of energy.
Yeah.
And like all that being said, I did love the book. Kristen did not, but like, and I mean, but also because I'm me, like I don't necessarily get as strict when I live by the books as Kristen does, where I'm like, how can I do this within like a way that doesn't make me go insane? And Kristen's like, I'll go insane. But like I still fold all my clothes like the same way. Often, like when I'm purchasing things, she talks about like, purchase things only when you need them, and like everything should spark joy, even like your pajamas. So it's like I like feeling like nice in everything I have now, and like now when I buy something I try to see like what doesn't spark joy necessarily anymore. And when I throw stuff out, I do thank it still, which I feel like is fun. She literally says, like, when you throw out something, like you throw out a shirt that you loved for like 3 years that you wore like throughout the whole of the pandemic, but there are holes in it. When you toss it, you go like, thank you. And it's like a nice way to like honor what it meant to you while you're also getting rid of it.
What would she say to do about my pants that are now suddenly have some mysterious thing that's like vaguely itchy on a spot on my back and I can't find it?
I think she would tell you to get rid of the pants, Allison. I think she would say
I wouldn't let go either. I would like be determined to find it even more and like end up ruining them somehow. But like that is what I'm say
going to do.
Yeah, I'd be like running a lighter everywhere, being like, maybe I'll like melt it down.
That's what I'll have to do. Oh, I have also during the pandemic, I bought a lint shaver.
Ooh,
I gotta like
maybe you can
off
shave
any
your
little
pants.
ends that are like invisible and sticking
Yeah,
up.
I'll
But
destroy
she would
them by shaving them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can totally do it too.
Yeah.
She would try to say like maybe replace them like in your capsule wardrobe. Get like 2 next time.
I actually did buy a replacement pair, but I can't find them. That's how organized I am. But the replacement pair, they don't fit the same.
I would say they haven't been lived in. They don't know. They don't know your body.
They don't. Yeah. They don't know. They don't know me. It's like my son has his favorite stuffed animal named Uniqua from the Backyardigans. And so he loves it so much that my mother-in-law bought another one which he immediately, recognized as not the same. So I was
Right.
calling her Nuniqua. And I was like, I thought that was my
cute.
clever little
That
thing.
is so cute. That
And
is
he
so
picked
cute.
her up and he said, "No, Niqua," and tossed her. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
that's even better than Nuniqua.
I love that Uniqua is his favorite of those backyardigans.
Yeah.
My niece is, she used to be very attached to Uniqua, and my nephew was all about Pablo the penguin.
Oh, yeah.
But I love that. I love that your son loved Uniqua.
Yeah. He has Pablo
But yeah, it didn't
and
feel right.
yeah. He has Pablo and Tyrone as well, but Uniqua is his
His ride
the
or
one he
die.
loves. Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Let's see. So that's fascinating to me that I didn't know, and if I didn't know, I feel like no one knows. How's that for solipsistic and narcissistic? That there's a whole other component to the Marie Kondo way. Does no one make it past halfway
That
through
makes
this
sense.
book? That's
well,
what I believe.
Also, the Netflix show that everyone watched, or like a lot of people watched, like they don't address it at all. And even Kristen and I were talking. We're like, oh, they took out the part that's like kind of crazy. Like they took out the part that's like crazy making.
Yeah.
And like when you read the whole book, even Marie Kondo talks about her background of like clutter drove her crazy as a child, and she would like run home to organize different things.
Well, I
and her
remember the part of
parents
the
would,
book
like,
where
tell her
she
to
would
stop.
she would throw out her siblings' items.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like clearly this woman has like an intense fixation on this lifestyle. And like I say this about all self-help books and authors, like what you're getting is a glimpse of someone of like the inner workings of someone's brain who has gone like who's gotten like super extreme focus on one like really small aspect of life, whether it's cleaning, meditating, waking up early. It's someone who's gotten really, really into it and like declared themselves an expert. But like people who get like super zoned into stuff, like get a little intense, get a little extra, do a little more than your average person could because like they just don't love it as much.
Yeah. And then they oversell the promise of how your life will be changed. They use the word life changing in so many books we've read. And it's like, is my life really going to be changed by organizing my shampoo every morning in this way? Is it really going to be changed for the better? Maybe it'll be changed for the worse and it'll be frustrating. Is my life really going to be made better by waking up at 4 a.m. each day, like one of our books required us to? No, it didn't make our lives better. It made Jolenta sick. She was completely sleep deprived and run down and so on. But the author of that book, he really believed, because it worked for him, that it's the one true way for everybody.
What was that book?
That was called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Hal Elrod? Yeah.
That sounds miserable.
Right.
And you don't just wake up early, then you have to do
There's
like
a whole
12
routine
things
you
every
have
morning.
to do.
No.
Yeah.
Atomic Habits gets brought up a lot in my world. And I have it on audiobook. I have not made it all the way through. That's when you guys did that one,
You
right?
don't have to. You can put it away, Allison.
Right. I was going to say like,
Not that good.
I feel like it's very quotable, but not like great when it comes to actually like the big picture of the advice. It's just sort of how to micromanage the shit out of yourself.
Yeah. And I also just don't like the overarching message of the book, which is repeatedly, daily or weekly, to look back on the progress you made or didn't make, and to remember that you're never going to be good enough and you must be 1% better every day than the day before. And like, I don't feel that makes – it doesn't make me feel better to think like, oh, I have to be 1% better tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Like, what's wrong with me the way I am now? Am I really that big of a loser? No, I'm not. But you are never good enough is the overarching message of that book to me. And so I don't want to live in that world where I'm never good enough. I don't want to live like that.
I will say there is one self-help book that did help me a ton that my therapist recommended many years ago. And I know it is by an author that wrote a book that you guys did talk about. So I'm curious what your reaction was. And it was Mars and Venus on a Date by John Gray. And when I went to her, I really didn't know like at all how to date. And I don't know that anyone's really taught how to date, but I sort of thought that if it was someone that I was hooking up with, that we were in a relation. I didn't really understand the difference between like, if someone just wants to hook up with you, they act a certain way. If someone wants to date you and be in a relationship with you, they act a different way. And so I was just constantly confused and hurt. And would I remember someone said about me, she reads signals from guys wrong. And it was like the most hurtful thing I had heard, even though I look back on that and I'm like, oh, that was totally true. But anyway, that book was really helpful for me. What did you think of Mars and Venus?
So we didn't read that book in the series. He wrote several books, but his first book he ever wrote, the big hit in the Mars Venus universe, his first big book in that series was called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Right.
And we found it to be completely based on certain kinds of antiquated gender norms.
Yeah.
And the idea that like, oh, men, when they come home, they don't want you, flapping your gums, ladies. They need their alone time in the man cave. And fellas, if your lady is being emotional, just remember that's her cycle. That's the way she is.
Yeah.
And ladies, if you tell your man when he's lost in the car, look, there's a gas station, we can stop and ask for directions, you essentially destroyed his ego and killed a part of his soul. And like it has a lot of things like ladies, but most of it's ladies, everything's your fault. Shut your mouth and just worship your man.
I know.
I feel like for dating advice, though, like because his book is based on like pretty heteronormative, like gender role stereotypes. And like, let's be honest, dating is like kind of surfacey at the beginning. And often like we have to sort of play into those stereotypes as our like modern mating ritual requires. So I could really see how, sort of being like men like this, women like this tends to scare men, like would be much more like would feel much lighter and much more approachable and applicable if it was just about like the first few dates and like how do stereotypically guys process this sort of behavior or that sort of behavior. But when it comes to just like this is the rest of your life and you have to like trick him into like pretending he's interested, it gets a little like bleak.
If I remember correctly, it like breaks down the beginning stages. There's like 5 stages, and it's like the like getting to know you, the something exclusivity, like doubt or so, like so that if like when you're falling in love with someone, all of a sudden you might have second thoughts, and someone who's not like up to speed on all this stuff might think this means they're with the wrong person, but actually that is a quote unquote normal, like healthy stage that you go through. I think that was in the book. But it was sort of helpful for me to have it broken down in that way. I don't know. This was many years ago. I feel like society has come a long way since then. There's probably a lot of other better books. But for someone who really didn't know what the hell was going on, it was kind of helpful. He's a very insipid little character, though, John Gray.
He's an interesting dude, yeah.
But I would also say that even the worst self-help books, sometimes we take away really helpful things from, and vice versa. Sometimes the best self-help books just have terrible things in them.
Yeah.
Sometimes the worst self-help books have little nuggets that like I still think about that might be useful. And some that, may be antiquated and dated in some ways. Like I know a lot of people make fun of How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like, hey, fellas, do you want to succeed in business without even trying? Do you want to win friends and influence people? My name is Dale Carnegie. It's like this whole other era of book from the 1930s. And but I will say there are things from that book I still think about. And the way he wrote it with positivity and with his hope to be inclusive in the best way he could as a white man in the 1930s, of bringing in stories of people who were Muslim, people who were Japanese, people who were, of different backgrounds and so on, women's stories. He tried to do that. But one thing I mention a lot is he said, be the dog. The dog greets people at the door and is excited to see them. The dog, doesn't say the minute that so-and-so comes home, like, why are you so late? Or, oh, God, I can't believe that you didn't bring home dinner with you or whatever. Like, be the dog. The dog's always excited to see you. And if you go in being the dog in most situations, you'll probably have a better time. And the people around you will probably like you better too, if you're the dog. So I think about that. And yeah, that may be a dated book, but I do think that there was some good in it.
I have always meant to read that book, and I never have.
It's not perfect. Again, it's very dated in some ways. But
Yeah.
I again, it goes back to what you were saying about Mars and Venus on a Date. Even books that have problems, I think, can have useful bits and pieces.
Right.
Oh, totally.
I think it is now time to do a segment called Just Me or Everyone. These are things we think or do, and we wonder, is it just me or is it everyone?
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
Do you guys happen to have one?
I have
I
one,
definitely
for
have
sure.
one. And Jolenta, I'm going to have to apologize to you for this.
What?
Jolenta has to suffer through a lot of my punning. I pun a lot.
That's true.
I'm wondering, is it just me or everyone? When you reach into the fridge, you have the door full of sauces. You're eating a nice Vietnamese lunch. You reach for that one sauce. Do you say, that sauce is poison? Is it just me or does everybody sing the song by Belle
wow.
Biv DeVoe? Is that sauce poison? Everyone does that, right? It's not just me.
I do not do that, but I probably will now that I've heard that.
It can't just be you. I don't think I've ever done that, but I'm sure it's not just you.
I feel like it should be everybody.
It's such a good one.
Yeah. That's really good.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
all the members of Belle Biv DeVoe, they must do it, right?
I would hope.
I wonder. I hope so. I hope
That's
they were like,
amazing.
duh, of course, the first thing I did when I got into that sauce.
Jolenta?
Okay, so this one's actually come up on our podcast by the book before. Is it just me or does everyone do this? I love peeing in the shower.
I do. Wait, did you say you love it, though?
I don't love it, but I do it. Like,
Okay.
it's like, sure, for sure. Like, let's do it. My husband was horrified to learn that I'd been peeing in our shower for years. And I'm like, what? You just go and pee a little. Like, it all goes down the drain. It's all washed away within seconds when you're soaping yourself up and shampooing. Like, it's like a free flush.
It's sterile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love peeing in the shower and brushing my teeth at the same time while they're shampooing my hair.
Oh.
I feel like everything's being cleaned that way. Everything is just, washing down the drain. I love it. I think it's great.
Huh.
Okay.
I don't brush my teeth in the
Good.
shower. Maybe I should.
I highly
I
recommend
used
it while you
to
pee.
when I was younger, like when I was like, gotta get to school. But I kind of stopped doing it.
I never really think about
Well,
my
I'm glad-
husband
oh.
peeing in the shower, though. But he probably does.
I wonder if, is it harder for men? I wouldn't think so.
Well, for
Why would it be
me,
harder?
I do try to sort of get it just right down, over the drain.
I was gonna say I just sort of stand over the drain and
Yeah.
I don't aim, but I hypothetically aim.
Right. And somehow I bet he is like, that's not happening. A conversation is going to be happening later.
Okay,
this
I feel
evening.
like the
Good, 'cause,
odd person
is it
out
like,
here.
oh, I always
that-
pee on the wall and then it's going to rinse off. Like,
Right.
Okay, so I feel like the odd person out because Dean and I frequently will shower together, and I don't care if he pees in the shower while I'm in the shower with him. Is that weird? Maybe that's just me. That might just be me.
Does it happen a lot?
Yeah, I guess it does. Now that I think about it. Yeah. And I have no qualms peeing in the shower when he's there with me, too.
I don't think I would want to.
So I guess it
I
is
don't think
just
I'd
me.
wanna
It's not
pee
everybody
if-
who pees
if
in
he
the
was
shower
there.
with
Oh,
their
no.
partner.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel like that's still private. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't be offended if he did it, but I'd be like, I don't know if we're this comfortable. I don't know if we should be this comfortable with each other. But you and your husband have a different level of like physical comfortability, I guess.
I mean, I like that. I like that you guys are doing that.
Right? Like
It's
I'm like
really-
envious and afraid.
We're saving a lot of flushes.
I mean, it sounds to
Yeah.
me like you guys are. It's sort of like this is just a regular shower you guys are taking together, as opposed to like this is a special
A
romantic
sex.
shower.
It's not like a sexy shower, right?
Oh, no. It's not a sexy shower. It's just like, hey.
It's just like we're both getting ready in the morning. I'm hopping into
Yeah,
like
exactly.
and I'm peeing because it's first thing in the morning or whatever.
Exactly. Yes. No
There's
offense
actually-
if that's your thing to like have
I'd be
sexy
fine
peeing
with
shower
it.
time, go for it. But ours is not
Well,
sexy.
yeah, I was
It's
gonna say
just-
I'm sure like yeah. I guess I'd be fine. I'm fine with him peeing while I'm like in the room doing stuff. So why would it be any different if I was in the room like and moved over to like where the water spigot is coming out of the wall? Like
There's actually a lot of
wow,
times
so
I'll
many
be
things to
getting.
think about.
Oh, sorry, I talked over you.
Oh no.
There's a lot of times I'll be getting ready for bed and I'll be like at the sink in the bathroom brushing my teeth. And then my husband will just come in and start brushing his teeth. And I feel like I would rather have privacy right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess what's the end of that thought? I don't know. So, but I guess we're just doing this now. Like, I guess.
Right. No, I know
you know.
that feeling a lot where it's like, oh, cool. Like now I have to be squished while I brush my teeth. Fine.
Yeah.
Like I love you, but like I don't need this.
Yeah, like why is my bathroom time not respected? Because if I was on the toilet, he wouldn't have come in unless he needed to get in right that minute. So why is this okay? I should just lock the door or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was like, yeah, I feel the same way often, but I have the door wide open too. So it's not like I'm like deterring him from coming in.
Right. Maybe I can't remember how I left the door. I'm sure I could just say something to him. I think you know what I think it is? I'm realizing as I'm saying it out loud. I think every night I have the thought as if it's for the first time. Like every night I'm annoyed as if it's the first time I'm annoyed. This has been helpful, guys. Thank you.
Every night you have that like, is this bugging me? Oh my God, it is.
Yeah. Just me or everyone. When my husband comes in, it annoys me.
I agree with you, especially in the mornings.
Yeah. And then also we have a segment called Hey Go Fuck Yourself. Does anyone have a Hey Go Fuck Yourself?
Oh my God, so many.
Or some. Feel free to
my-
do multiples.
Oh God. Can I just say Clarence,
Yes.
Ginny? Clarence and Ginny Thomas. Hey, will you just go fuck yourselves? Please. Fuck yourselves. Please, Clarence Thomas, don't just recuse yourself from anything involving the court case around the insurrection on January 6th. Completely step down from the Supreme Court, resign, hanging your head in shame. You have a treasonous wife, a wife who wanted the government that you work for to be overthrown. No, Ginny, you are terrible. Clarence, you never do anything, by the way, in your job. When have you ever written a decision? When have you actually done anything useful with your job? I'm not even going to, bring up the fact that you have a history of sexual assault. Oh, no, I just did. I brought it up. Yes. So that's a problem, too. You need to step down from the court, Clarence. And Ginny, you need to just go somewhere else. I don't know what I want you to do. Oh, I know. I want you to go fuck yourself. Yes, that's what I want.
Hey, go fuck yourself.
Hard agree.
Yes.
Beautifully put, girl.
I'm not even talking about Roe v. Wade yet. I could go
I
on and
know.
on with that too. I could really go on with that too. Yeah.
Well, I feel like yours leads right into mine because mine was Clarence Thomas and Brent Kavanaugh.
Oh, yes. Yes.
They super can go fuck themselves, especially because they're the two people on the Supreme Court who have been like very publicly accused of like pretty believable like moments of sexual assault. So the fact that they think they are qualified to tell like 51% of the population like how to deal with their body parts is fucking insane.
Hey, go fuck yourself.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Kristen, Jolenta, it was so nice having you on the show. Thank you so much. Tell everyone, again, where they can go, plug all your things, your social media handles if you would like, etc. Please.
Oh my gosh. Well, Romance Road Test, the Audible original is at audible.com/romance road test. We have a great episode with Nedra Glover Tawwab at the end. She's like the super best-selling author / relationship therapist. She's incredible. Definitely check it out. Also, our regular podcast, By the Book, if you just search for it, you can find it in like any podcatcher. And we got lots of episodes. So if you need a binge, we're here for you.
And are you guys on? I know you have
I would say,
really.
Kristen, do you want to?
Oh, yeah.
You want to do the Facebook and
I'll
like
do the
our
socials.
Insta handles? They're all.
Yeah. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, where you can oftentimes see photos of us living by books and enhancing and destroying our marriages, you can look for us on Instagram at By the Book Pod. That's the same handle for Twitter, at By the Book Pod, where we share episodes and thoughts about things and this and that. And then we have this very, very active private Facebook community with 15,000 people who just log in every day and talk to each other about life and what they need help with and what they're mad about in the world and so on. And that is facebook.com/groups/BTBpod. So, those are all of our socials.
I joined last night and I was like, this is so cool. I already learned stuff.
It's one of the nicest groups I'm in. I'm in a lot of like reality TV show gossip groups. And then I always go to our group to be like, oh my gosh, like there is kindness in the world, even on the internet. And like people want to help each other and like give snarky advice.
Whenever I find a good, robust group on Facebook, I'm like, damn it, because I want to like not be on Facebook. And then I'm like, but it's got good stuff sometimes. You guys, thank you so much. Listeners, if you like what you're hearing, or even if you don't, make sure you're subscribed. Leave us a nice review. It helps out the show. Tell your friends. Listen to my other podcasts, Childish and Upworthy Weekly. Upworthy Weekly is my lighthearted news podcast, comes out on Saturdays. Childish is my parenting-ish podcast with Greg Fitzsimmons, comes out every other Wednesday. Follow me on social media at Allison Rosen on Twitter and Instagram. I am on Patreon, patreon.com/Allison Rosen for all that fun stuff. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but you know where to find me. You guys, thank you so much. This was so great. Listeners, thank you for listening. I love you. You matter. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Allison Rosen Show?